Positive Behaviour Strategies. This is a course created for all parents of children and young people with additional needs. In previous sessions, we've tried to help you to understand the wide range of needs that your child or young person may have, how those needs will fill up the bucket and then impact on their behaviour. We then introduced the idea of positive behaviour support and showed you how to prepare for situations which have been problematic for your child and to make plans that you can share with others. The hope is that with your wider understanding of your child's needs and behaviours that you're beginning to recognise the triggers, the sometimes subtle signals that things are not going well, and that you've already thought about some strategies that you can now put in place to manage their worst behaviours. In this session, we're going to share with you some strategies which you may not have thought of and which you can add to your growing list of skills for managing behaviour. This particular session is going to focus just on communication, helping you to change the way you communicate with your child or young person, and ways to help them to communicate better with you and with others. If your child or young person has additional needs, and particularly if they have traits of ASD, then they will almost certainly have some difficulties with speech and language or interaction. Even if their speech and language are really good, remember that they may not understand feelings or facial expression, but understanding and processing as well. So they're still useful for children with good verbal skills. And schools have recognised how absolutely crucial visual timetables are in classrooms, mainly for children with additional needs, but useful for everybody. Now and next, or first and then, are good verbal tools widely used now in classrooms, but you can add visuals for those who are less able verbally or with processing difficulties. Here are some examples of visual aids. They can help you to teach a child a daily routine or to understand dangerous situations, or you can use them just to assure them of what is happening now and next in order to reduce anxiety. But visual aids also includes really simple things like coloured dots on a page to remind a child where to start writing, or highlighter pen on the most important parts of a worksheet or a homework instruction, or coloured numbers to show them the correct order of a task. Think about how these would help your child with homework, with schoolwork, if the school is not already taking these kinds of steps for them. What we would like you to think about is how you speak to your child or young person. Are you using the correct, clear and simple language? And are you giving them maybe 4 or 5 step instructions when they can only manage 3-step instructions? You'll need to observe and take note of how they deal with instructions to work that out. Generally reduce the amount of talking. It could be that Josh book bag would accomplish much more than I don't see your book bag. Did you put it down? Did you leave it in the playground, or do you think you left it in the classroom? Do you want to go in and see whether it's there, or do you want me to go? Is there anybody still in there? Honestly, you would forget your head if it wasn't screwed on. So much talking. Josh, book bag. Notice that I started this statement with his name. If I was talking to somebody and giving them my full attention and shutting out all the other conversations in the room, but somebody on the other side of the room said my name quietly, then my head would immediately turn towards them, because our brains are wired that way in order to keep us safe. So as long as you're not doing it all the time and they teach themselves to ignore you, putting your child's name at the front of an instruction when it's an important instruction can be really useful. Some children shut down under questioning, so think about the quality rather than the quantity of questions. If your child shuts down under questioning, try I wonder. I wonder how the boy is feeling now. I wonder why the girl did that. This makes it sound more like you're just throwing out an idea which they can answer if they would like to. It doesn't put them under the spotlight and therefore reduces their anxiety. Use reading or watching TV together as a learning and teaching opportunity. Talk about how the characters might be feeling and how you can tell. And don't give them too many choices when you're communicating with them. 2 is about right, 3 maximum. Parents have told me that if they give their children a choice of 6 breakfast cereals in the morning, they can have an absolute meltdown. So that can be used as a general guide. Not too many choices. If it's continually pointed out to a child that they're not speaking correctly, then they may eventually just stop altogether. Model correct speech and language subtly. If your child says to you, "That man goed in the park," say, "Yes, good boy for noticing. That man went in the park." Model the correct language and then move on. Don't emphasise it. Don't ask them to repeat it. And just help to protect their sometimes fragile self-esteem. The 12-second rule. If a child has language delay or processing difficulties, then we need to give them time. And as adults, we are not very good at that. We don't like silence and we try to fill it. If we don't get a reply to a question within about 3 seconds, then generally we would repeat the question, or even worse, we would rephrase it. Think about what your child might be having to work out when you ask a question or give an instruction. What was I asked? What is expected of me? How will I respond? What words am I going to use? How will I put those into a sentence? If that question is reworded after 3 seconds or 4 seconds, then that whole process has to start from the beginning again. Start to use the 12-second rule. Ask a question and wait for 12 seconds. It does take practice. It's a long time to wait, but bear with it and you'll find that it will reap benefits. And remember that if we're upset, we find it hard to communicate anyway. So in that situation, they may need you to delay for even longer to give them more time to process and formulate their speech and their ideas. Teach them what to say in different situations by modelling some of the vocabulary that they need. I can tell by your face that you're a bit puzzled. How can I help you? You look a bit sad. Do you want to tell me about it? If you model this kind of language with your child, then the hope would be that they would remember some of it and use it with others. And think about sensory input. Are you asking your child to interact with you about something which is quite serious or quite important in the right place in the house? Is there somewhere where there would be less light, less noise, and less distractions for them? Positive phrasing, so simple but so constructive. It does take a bit of practice, but once you change to this strategy, you'll wonder why you weren't doing it before. Adults, when we're told what not to do, we are able to surmise what we should be doing. But our children or young people with additional needs may be very literal. They may have processing difficulties or just a lack of imagination. Try this strategy. So don't hit Annie would become be gentle with your sister. Stop running, walk, thank you. Don't leave that mess on the floor. Tidy your Lego away, thank you. Don't leave that mess on the floor doesn't really tell the child anything about what you want them to do with it. You may think it does, but you may genuinely have to spell out to the child exactly what is expected of them. Another example I give is don't spill that drink. That's really not very helpful. If anything, it will probably make them a bit more shaky and nervous and more likely to spill the drink. So hold your cup tightly. Thank you. Notice that I say thank you after these phrases rather than please. Walk, please suggests that they have something of a choice in the matter, whereas walk, thank you means it's already been decided that's what I'd like you to do. This is something that, as I say, does take a bit of practice, but is really does make sense once you get the hang of it. Empowering sentences are linked to the key principle of choose your battles, which we spoke about in the last session. Children who have no control over what they can do are anxious children. Try to reduce the number of demands which give them none of the power, and increase statements which share the power with them a little bit. Now, clearly, when your child is running towards the dual carriageway, come back and find me when you're ready, dear, is not the correct response. But there will be times where you can use that instead of come back here now. Hiding under the tables, very common, and very common particularly in schools. And dragging a child out from under the table is incredibly upsetting for the child, for the adult as well, and for all his or her classmates. Maybe they all have to be in the bus in 5 minutes in order to go to the gym, but there will be times when it is okay to let them listen from under the table unless they've got some kind of hearing problem. If you take the challenge out of a situation, it is usually a better situation. Always remember, though, that you are the adult and that you decide when it's safe to share the power. Read me your school book before bed. Could become, what would you like to read to me before bed? You're not giving away all the power, you'd still like them to read, but you're sharing some of that control with them. And as I say, it is something that takes a bit of practice, but is worth persevering with. Social stories allow a child to practice situations before they face them. They take some of the fear out of change, and they can teach your child some useful skills. They should be written in the first person, so I am going to the circus. I love animals, but I don't like clowns, etc. And they can include cartoon visuals or actual photographs of your child. Schools increasingly are taking pictures of children showing good learning behaviours, for example, and incorporating these into a display for the classroom wall called something like How We Behave. And the children clearly are paying more attention to it because it includes these photographs of themselves. Now, remember what we said about positive phrasing. The social stories have to be written positively. So it would say something like, I will hold an adult's hand, rather than I won't run away from adults. The creator of social stories says that you should picture the goal and then tailor the story accordingly. You can find lots of these online, but you know your child best and you will be best at tailoring an individual story for them. And you can incorporate and teach skills. So for an older child, you might incorporate something like, if I feel anxious, I will take 3 deep breaths. And as I say, you're teaching them a skill. There are many, many social stories available, lots of templates and ideas. And these are just some of the kinds of things that you might want to write a social story about. I've started a social story at the bottom of this slide about going to a birthday party. So written in the first person, I'm going to Tom's birthday party. Tom is my best friend. We like to do things together, just us two, but at the party will be lots of his friends because it's kind to include everyone. Tom will have to talk and play with all of them, but it won't mean that I am not his special friend. It will be busy and noisy, but Tom's mum is making a quiet space in the spare bedroom just for me, and so on.